Hi, everyone. Before I begin, let me just say this. If you have ever felt invisible in your own home, if you have ever wondered whether your existence truly mattered to the people meant to love you unconditionally, I hope my story reaches you in the right way. And if you believe stories like these deserve to be told, please do not forget to comment your thoughts and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. My name is Emma Hale, or at least that is the name I go by now. The one I was born with belonged to a girl who tried for years to earn her family's love. A girl who believed, with every breath, that if she worked hard enough, behaved well enough, achieved enough, she could finally become someone worthy in their eyes. But she never did. No matter how bright she shined, the people around her never bothered to look. I grew up in a house where love was something measured, not given, where affection felt like currency, and I was always broke. My parents, Mark and Helen, were not monsters. They smiled. They had friends. They were charming in that way adults can be charming when they want the world to see them as respectable. But inside the walls of our home, there was a very clear hierarchy, and I was at the bottom. My older brother, Ryan, was the golden child. Star athlete. Future leader. My mother practically glowed every time she said his name. My younger sister, Lily, was the baby everyone adored. Even her tantrums were considered cute. But me, I was the quiet middle child, the reliable one, the one who never asked for anything, the one who was always expected to adjust, to compromise, to understand. I still remember being 8 years old, standing in the hallway as my mother kissed Ryan on the forehead after he won some small school award. I remember watching her hug Lily after her preschool recital, calling her my little star. And I remember standing there holding my own art project, waiting for someone to notice. But no one did. My mother walked right past me and turned out the hallway light. The shadows swallowed me whole while she whispered goodnight to everyone but me. That was the first time I realized I could disappear and nothing in that house would change. Years went by, and I found my escape in school. In books. In learning. While my siblings shined in ways everyone loved to celebrate sports, popularity, social events, I built my identity through academics. I studied late, worked hard, and excelled quietly. But even then, my achievements were treated like footnotes. If Ryan brought home a C, we celebrated his effort. If Lily performed a cartwheel in the yard, my parents rushed to record it. When I came home with straight A's, my mother would say, "That is good, sweetie," without looking up from her phone. So, I told myself a simple lie that children often tell. If I do better next time, they will finally care. The lie stayed with me for years. By the time my senior year of high school arrived, I had built a life outside the house. Teachers adored me. Friends respected me. I had been accepted into several excellent colleges. I was a quiet achiever, sure, but people who mattered recognized my worth. Except my family. Graduation day was the moment I had been waiting for. It was the culmination of every night I spent studying under a dim lamp, every test I aced, every essay I wrote until my hand went numb. I told myself that even if they had ignored everything else, surely they would come to see me walk across the stage. Because who forgets their child's graduation? Apparently, my family. A week before the ceremony, I reminded them several times. I even printed out the schedule and placed it on the refrigerator. They said they would be there. My father even patted my shoulder and told me he was proud of me. The gesture was small, almost awkward, but it was enough to spark something like hope. I allowed myself to imagine my mother standing in the crowd, camera raised. My father waving. Lily smiling. Ryan maybe giving me that rare nod of acknowledgement he only offered when he felt obligated. But when the morning of graduation arrived, the house was silent. I woke up early, my cap and gown neatly laid out on my bed. I stepped into the hallway expecting to hear voices, footsteps, maybe even a good luck. Instead, I heard nothing but the soft hum of the air conditioner. The kitchen was empty. No breakfast. No note. No sign that anyone had remembered what day it was. I checked the garage. The family car was gone. And then I saw it on the counter, a handwritten note from my mother. Gone to Lily's regional gymnastics meet. Big day for her. Dinner tonight. My hands trembled as I held it. I kept reading it over and over, hoping I had misunderstood anything. The time of the meet. The date. Maybe it was rescheduled. Maybe they planned to meet me after. Maybe. But no. It was exactly what it looked like. They chose her event over my graduation. On purpose. I felt my knees weaken. The house suddenly felt unfamiliar, like I was standing in a place that was never truly mine. Years of hurt rose to the surface in a way I could not contain. I had begged for scraps of love, and this was the confirmation that I meant nothing to them unless they needed something from me. Still, I went to my graduation alone. I sat in my seat, surrounded by families cheering for their children. Some parents screamed names with pride. Others cried while filming every moment. And then there was me smiling for pictures taken by classmates because no one from my family was there to capture anything. When they called my name, I walked across the stage with steady steps. But inside, I was falling apart. I knew, in that moment, that something inside me had changed forever. And I had no idea that this single day would become the beginning of a completely different life, one where I would no longer be the forgotten child. One where I would reclaim myself. One where I would choose a new name. When the ceremony ended, people flooded out of the auditorium with flowers, balloons, and signs made with glitter pens. Seniors hugged their families, posed for photos, and cried tears of joy. I watched them from a distance, clutching the thin program in my hand like it was the only proof I belonged there. I kept scanning the crowd, even though I knew no one was coming for me. It is strange how the mind works. Even when reality is painfully clear, hope lingers like a stubborn ghost. A small part of me still believed that maybe my family would show up late, running through the crowd, waving, apologizing, saying they got held up by traffic or parking or some unpredictable circumstance. But hope can be cruel. I stood there for almost an hour. I watched families fade out one by one until only a handful of students remained. A teacher of mine, Mrs. Stevens, approached me with that soft smile of hers. She handed me a small bouquet of daisies. "You worked so hard, Emma. Congratulations. I am proud of you." Those words, so simple, made my throat tighten. Someone had noticed. Someone cared. I wanted to hug her, but I was afraid that if I did, I might not let go. When I finally left the school grounds, the sun was beginning to set. I walked home slowly, dragging my fingers along the fence posts like a child. I needed the walk. I needed the time to breathe and brace myself for whatever excuse my family would offer. But when I stepped through the front door, nothing was out of place. Nothing was different. My mother was busy in the kitchen, humming while stirring something on the stove. My father was on the couch watching television. Ryan was in his room. Lily was stretching in the living room, proudly wearing a new medal around her neck. It looked like any other evening. My mother glanced over her shoulder when she heard me come in. "Oh, good. You are home. Dinner will be ready soon." That was all she said. No, how is it? No, we are sorry. No mention of my graduation at all. My father did not look up from the television. Lily waved her medal at me, expecting praise. Ryan did not even acknowledge I was there. I stood in the doorway, still clutching the program, still wearing my cap and gown. It felt absurd, like I was dressed for the wrong event in the wrong house. Like I was a guest who had shown up at a stranger's door. I cleared my throat. Today was my graduation. My mother blinked once, then said, "Yes, honey, I know, but Lily qualified for regionals, and you know how important that is for her. She has worked so hard for this." I stared at her, waiting for more. We are sorry. Anything. Nothing came. My mother went back to stirring the pot. My father flipped the channel. Lily continued her stretching routine. Ryan walked past me to the kitchen without a glance. It was then that something inside me finally snapped. Not loudly. Not violently. It felt more like a quiet break, a subtle shift where a heart fractures not from impact, but from exhaustion. I walked upstairs without saying another word. I closed my bedroom door, leaned against it, and let myself feel everything I had been holding in for years. I cried not just for the graduation they missed, but for every moment of my childhood that I had tried to pretend did not hurt. Every time I convinced myself their indifference was normal. Every time I believed their neglect was my fault. But somewhere in that storm of tears, clarity began to rise. I realized that nothing I ever did would be enough for them. I could win awards, get scholarships, build a future, save the world, and it still would not matter because they had never chosen to see me. Not truly. And I asked myself a single question. If I disappeared today, would they notice? The answer was immediate.
No.
Not really. They would adjust. They always expected me to adjust. My absence would become another quiet space in the house they would never fill. That night, I did not sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of my life like a film I finally understood. Sometime around dawn, I made a decision. A life-changing decision. I was going to leave. Not temporarily. Not in anger. Not to make a point. I was going to leave to save myself. For the first time in my life, I was going to choose me. But leaving physically was not enough. I needed something symbolic. Something final. Something that separated the person they ignored from the person I wanted to become. I wanted a new name. A clean slate. My birth name belonged to a girl who waited for affection that never came. A girl who tried endlessly to prove she belonged in a family that did not want her. A girl who stayed small, quiet, unseen out of habit, not choice. I wanted to bury that identity. I wanted to be someone new, someone I created, not someone shaped by neglect. In the days that followed, I prepared silently. I researched legal name changes. I spoke to my guidance counselor who helped me apply for financial aid and recommended programs where I could live on campus. I spent hours packing my belongings in small, careful bundles that could fit into the trunk of a car. No one in my house noticed. I moved around the kitchen. I washed dishes. I did laundry. I folded towels. I passed my mother in the hall. I sat next to my father during dinner. I even helped Lily adjust her practice schedule. And still no one asked how my graduation went. No one asked why the flowers on my nightstand were not the kind they usually bought for big events. No one asked why I was quieter than usual. I was a ghost in my own home, drifting through rooms without leaving footprints. The night before I planned to leave, I stood in my doorway and looked around my room. The posters on the walls. The old books on the shelves. The bedspread I had since childhood. Everything felt frozen in time, preserved around a version of me that no longer existed. I whispered to the empty room, "You will not keep me anymore." The decision was made. Irreversible. Empowering. But what I did not know was that leaving would open doors I had never imagined. That disappearing from the family who never truly had me would become the first step toward a life rich with people who actually cared. And it would all begin with the moment I walked out that front door. The morning I left my house for the last time, the world was quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. Not the tender hush before the dawn. This was the silence of endings, the kind that settles over you like a held breath, heavy and fragile. I packed the last of my bags into a borrowed car, courtesy of my guidance counselor's husband, who insisted I use it until I settled on campus. I stood on the driveway in front of the house I had grown up in, staring at the windows, the familiar siding, the front door that had never truly felt welcoming. I expected to feel something: sadness, anger, nostalgia. Instead, there was only a strange emptiness, like my emotions had drained out overnight, leaving nothing behind but resolve. Inside, the morning routine continued without interruption. My father drank his coffee while scrolling through his phone. My mother rushed around preparing Lily for another practice. Ryan grabbed his backpack and left early, without a word. I stood there for several minutes, waiting, hoping, maybe foolishly, that someone would notice the luggage at my feet. That someone would ask why I was wearing my nicest shirt, or why I had tears in my eyes, or why I kept glancing back at them. But no one looked. It was almost poetic in a painfully predictable way. I stepped back inside for one last moment. I took a breath. "Mom," I called out. She peeked around the corner, distracted and impatient. "Yes? Make it quick, we are late." I swallowed. "I am leaving today." She blinked, already half turning away. Where to? To college, I said slowly. I told you I was moving into the dorms this week. Oh, right, she said, waving a hand. Yes, yes. Send us your address later. That was it. No hug. No good luck. No moment of parental pride or concern. I walked toward the door. My father did not look up as I passed him. Lily waved absent-mindedly, but continued practicing her routine in the living room, humming to herself. Ryan was already gone, unaware I would not be there when he returned. I opened the front door, stepped outside, and pulled it shut behind me. The click of that door echoed louder than any argument, louder than any goodbye. It was the sound of a life ending so another could begin. As I drove away, I felt the weight of the years pressing against my chest, the birthdays they forgot, the accomplishments they brushed aside, the late nights I spent crying quietly so no one would hear. But with every mile that passed beneath the tires, something inside me loosened. I felt myself slowly untangling from the invisible ties that had held me in place for so long. By the time I reached the college campus, I could breathe again. The air felt lighter. The colors looked brighter. For the first time, I felt like the world was mine to claim. The dorm building was older but charming, with ivy crawling up the brick walls and sunlight spilling through the wide windows. Students were moving and all around me laughing, carrying boxes, hugging their parents. The energy buzzed with possibility. A girl with curly brown hair and oversized glasses waved from down the hall. You must be Emma. I am Nora, your roommate. Her voice was warm, genuine, full of enthusiasm. I smiled despite the heaviness inside me. Nora helped me carry some of my bags to our room, chattering the entire way. She told me about her hometown, her obsession with vintage cameras, and how excited she was to start fresh. I listened quietly, grateful for the distraction. That first night in the dorm, I lay in my new bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling strangely untethered. I was free, technically, but freedom felt unfamiliar, almost frightening. I had spent so many years trying to be small, invisible, pleasing, that the idea of shaping my own identity seemed overwhelming. That was when I remembered my vow. A new life, a new path, a new name. The next morning, I walked into the administrative office and began the process of legally changing my name. When the woman behind the desk asked me what name I wanted, I felt a warmth bloom inside my chest. I had thought long and hard about it. I wanted something that symbolized strength, rebirth, and independence. I chose Emma Hale. Emma meaning whole, universal, complete. Hale meaning healthy, alive, in good condition. It felt right, like stepping into the skin of the person I was always meant to be. The staff member smiled. It is a beautiful name. Strong. Strong. No one had ever used that word to describe me before. Over the next few months, I settled into college life. I made friends. I joined clubs. I filled my schedule with classes I loved. People noticed me, listened to me, valued me. I discovered that I was smart in ways I had never been allowed to explore. I learned that my voice had weight. I learned that my presence mattered. One night, around midterms, Nora and I were sitting on her bed eating chips when she suddenly said, You have this way of shrinking yourself. Like you are used to taking up the least amount of space possible. I froze. She looked at me with soft concern. You do not have to do that here. People like you. I like you. You are not invisible. Those words pierced something deep inside me. Invisible. That was exactly what I had been. For so long that I forgot what it felt like to be seen. I did not tell Nora, everything, not yet. But her words stayed with me. They became the catalyst for something larger. I started speaking up more in class. I volunteered for leadership roles. I presented projects confidently. I joined a writing club and shared my work for the first time. Every small step felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I never knew I had lost. And slowly, almost without noticing, I built a life filled with people who chose me. People who celebrated me. People who loved me freely, without conditions. The girl I used to be, the girl with the forgotten graduation began fading into the background, becoming a distant memory of a life that no longer belonged to me. But life has a way of bringing the past back when you least expect it. It happened during my second semester. Late one evening, I received an email from the university's financial office asking me to confirm my emergency contact information. I realized I had left it blank during enrollment. I stared at the form for a long time, unable to think of a name. I had no one from home I trusted. No one I could turn to. After several minutes of sitting in silence, I typed Nora's name. She had become my family more than anyone related to me ever had. When I clicked submit, a sense of closure washed over me. But that feeling did not last long. 2 days later, my phone rang with a number I recognized instantly. My mother. The past I thought I had erased was suddenly calling me, literally dragging itself back into my life. I stared at the screen as it vibrated in my hand. And for the first time in my life, I had the power to choose whether to answer. The phone kept vibrating in my hand, its screen glowing with a name I had tried so hard to leave behind. My mother. The woman whose approval I had chased for years. The woman who forgot my graduation. The woman who barely noticed when I walked out of her life. My chest tightened. I could hear my heartbeat echo in my ears. My dorm room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. I pressed the side button and let the phone ring until it stopped. A minute later, it rang again. And again. And again. Something must have happened, I thought. Something big. Something serious. My stomach twisted with worry, with instinct, with that old familiar guilt I thought I had buried. On the 5th call, I answered. I pressed the phone to my ear, but said nothing. Hello? Hello? Is this my daughter? Her voice was shaky, breathless, like she had been crying. But I did not feel concern. I did not feel warmth. I felt suspended, detached, like I was watching this happen from outside my own body. Finally, I spoke. This is Emma. Emma Hale. A long silence followed. Then she said, That is not your name. Yes, I replied softly. It is. Another silence. A heavier one. Then my mother exhaled. We need you to come home. There it was. Not how are you? Not we are sorry. Not we miss you. Just we need you. The same words that had defined my entire childhood. They never came to me because they loved me. They came to me because they needed something: chores, help, responsibilities, silence, obedience. What do you need? I asked. Her voice wavered. It is your sister, Lily. My heart clenched. She had an accident during practice. She fell off the beam. She broke her ankle. The doctors say she will recover, but she is scared and asks for you. I closed my eyes. A wave of emotion hit me, but not the one I expected. Not panic. Not grief. It was clarity. Why would she ask for me? I asked calmly. My mother hesitated. Because you were always good with her. You always knew how to calm her down. There it was again. Because I was useful. Because I could fix things. Because I had been the emotional caretaker of a family that never cared for me. Because they needed me. I swallowed. What about my graduation? My mother went silent. What about every event you skipped? Every achievement you ignored? What about the fact that I moved out and not one of you noticed? What about the fact that I changed my name months ago and you did not even realize it? Her breathing grew uneven. We were busy, things were complicated. Emma, listen, we do not have time for this right now. A quiet, brittle laugh escaped me. Of course they did not have time. They never had time for me. I am not coming home, I said. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through bone. Emma, do not be ridiculous, she snapped. Your family needs you. You cannot just abandon us. I am not abandoning anyone, I answered. I am choosing myself. For the first time. My mother scoffed, then her voice became cold, so cold it chilled me even through the phone. You are being dramatic. This is your sister. You cannot ignore your own blood. Blood does not make a family, I whispered. Love does. Another long silence. Then, with a voice dripping with disbelief, she asked. So this is it? You are choosing strangers over your own family? Yes, I said. Because strangers have treated me with more kindness than you ever did. She inhaled sharply, as if my words struck her. You will regret this, Emma. No, I replied. I think the regret belongs to you. And, before she could respond, I hung up. The moment the call ended, my entire body began shaking. Not from fear. Not from sadness. From release. For the first time in my life, I had drawn a boundary. A real one. A boundary that protected me, honored me, respected me. I put the phone down and sat at the edge of my bed, staring at my hands as they continued trembling. Something inside me cracked open, not painfully, but like a shell breaking so something new could emerge. Nora burst into the room a moment later. I heard your phone ringing like crazy. Are you okay? What happened? I looked up at her, my eyes filled with a mixture of exhaustion and relief. My family called, I said. They wanted me to come home. She sat beside me immediately. Do you want to talk about it? I nodded, and for the first time since leaving that house, I told someone everything. Every small wound. Every forgotten moment. Every disappointment. Every hope that died in that home. Nora listened without interrupting. When I finished, she placed her hand gently over mine. You did the right thing, she whispered. You saved yourself. Her kindness broke the last piece of the weight I had been carrying. I cried not the quiet, hidden tears of my childhood, but deep, shaking sobs that felt like they were cleansing me. Nora held me until my breathing steadied. Over the next few days, the calls from my family continued, but I never picked up again. Eventually, they stopped. My life moved forward. My name, Emma Hale, stopped feeling like something new and started feeling like something true. I grew into it fully. I built a circle of friends who became the family I chose. I found mentors, love, opportunity, and a sense of belonging I had never known before. Every birthday was celebrated. Every achievement was recognized. Every struggle was met with support. And every time I looked back, I realized something profound. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from the people who hurt you, even if they share your blood. Especially if they do. Years later, I heard updates about my old family through distant relatives or social media posts. They were doing fine, functioning as they always had. I was not mentioned in their photos or stories. And strangely, I was okay with that. Because I no longer needed to be seen by people who were committed to ignoring me. I had built a life where I was visible, valuable, loved. I had built a life worth living. Sometimes, people ask me if I ever regret walking away. And the answer is simple. No. The only regret I have is that I did not leave sooner. If you connected with my story, or if you have ever felt unseen in your own home, I hope my journey reminds you that your worth is not defined by the people who fail to recognize it. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to create a new beginning. You are allowed to walk toward a life that loves you back. If this story moved you, please take a moment to comment your thoughts, like the video, and subscribe for more stories like this. Your support helps these voices be heard. And remember this. Sometimes the family you choose is the one that truly becomes home. Thank you for listening.